Good evening to all of you, and good morning to some of you who are in the other parts of the world. My name is Dr. Fatima Bustos-Choy, Program Director with the Institute of Brain Education in the United States. And I'm grateful to be here with my esteemed colleagues and valued audience from all over the world. Before I begin, I would like to ask you to please place your hands over your hearts. If you're comfortable, close your eyes. I believe each of us was born with inherent greatness. Breathe in and feel this greatness in your heart. Slowly breathe out and open your eyes. Thank you. My presentation, so if I could have, okay, thank you. My presentation, Imagine Philippines, Imagine More. From colonial shadows to inherent greatness is our Filipino story. It is also a human story, the human capacity to heal, to reimagine, and to rise. From my own experience, this capacity is made possible with brain education. Next slide. Once upon a time, the Philippines, an archipelago of 7,000 beautiful islands, had its own identity. We were not waiting to be civilized. We had systems of leadership, trade, spirituality, artistry, and most of all, community. We called it bayanihan. Our ancestors lived in relationship with one another, with nature, and with the sacred rhythms of life. We were a people with inherent wholeness and greatness. Then something happened. Next slide. Beginning in 1521, Spanish colonization of the Philippines did not only change land, religion, and governance. Colonization reshaped Filipino identity, memory, and self-perception. It's as if a spell, and I intentionally use this word, was cast upon our people. The spell consisted of distorted stories, beliefs, emotional patterns, and narratives of inferiority, fear, and self-doubt, which were systematically repeated over generations until they felt like truth and became normalized. Messages such as, you are inferior, be small, you're not good enough, be humble, you are less than, be grateful, you are weak, be afraid. These were not simply political messages, they were psychological and emotional, which over time made people doubt their worth, their voice, culture, and greatness. Next slide. The spell is what scholars call colonial mentality, a form of psychological conditioning shaped over centuries, which became the mirror of consciousness from which many Filipinos have unknowingly come to see themselves. Research by Filipino-American psychologists, including E.J.R. David, has linked colonial mentality to lower self-esteem, depression, and diminished confidence. My dissertation, The Impact of Colonialism on Filipino-American Women in the Workplace, supported these findings. So to understand the present, we must first name what I call the root of the root, the historical imprint, the spell, and how this is showing up in the lives of Filipino Americans today. Next slide. These inherited messages of inferiority shows up in everyday behaviors at home, at work, in business, in communities. In the Filipino-American context, these patterns include quiet resignation and acceptance of what is. We call this term bahala na in Tagalog, translated as whatever will be, will be. Then there's fear of authority, disguised as respect. One participant said that when she received her performance review of how great she did, she said to her boss, "Oh, no, no, it was because of you. You did most of the work." Then there's chronic self doubt, lack of trust, and we often call this the imposter syndrome. In the workplace, we are often praised for being good workers, but not seen as leaders. Another example, a Filipino executive told me, "I do the work of a director, but I hesitate to apply for the position." Sadly, many Filipinos do not see or recognize these as colonial narratives. Some see them as personal flaws. They are not. They are learned survival responses from historical conditioning of colonial mentality. Next slide, please. Therein lies the paradox. Filipino Americans are a highly educated, highly capable, hardworking, and deeply contributing community. More than 4 million strong in the United States, with a buying power in the billions, significant presence in healthcare, education, entrepreneurship, and public service. And yet, despite these strengths, the community remains underrepresented in political leadership, corporate executive positions, and national narratives. The question becomes, why does such a talented, highly competent, and hardworking community remains so often unseen? My argument is this: this is not a talent gap nor a motivation gap. It is a historical imprint shaping present day reality. And there is a cost. When the spell of colonial mentality remains unaddressed and continues across generations, the impact is not only personal, it ripples outward into families, workplaces, communities, society, and into areas of economic, civic, and generational development. The cost shows up in examples of wage gaps and under promotion, mental health strain, which is a big one among Filipino Americans. Then there's community fragmentation between the youth and elders, parents and children, and limited civic engagement and participation. I want to emphasize this. A deep tragedy of colonization is this: eventually, the external oppressor is no longer needed because the voice of oppression has been internalized. Next slide. This is why colonial mentality is not only cultural or historical, but also neurobiological. We've had presentations before this that in many ways substantiate this. It lives in the deepest parts of the brain. The messages enter the neocortex, or the thinking brain. The feelings from the messages go through the limbic system, or emotional brain. The repetition of messages and feelings over and over stay in the brainstem, or the life brain. What happens? The messages become invisible, taken for granted, normalized, automatic, and embodied patterns. But brain education gives us a powerful and hopeful insight. The brain is not fixed, as we have seen just a couple of presenters ago. Through neuroplasticity, the brain has the ability to change. Human beings can transform. Next slide. So the antidote is imagination. And imagination is the neuroplasticity, the outcome of neuroplasticity is imagination. What I believe is the mightiest antidote to the spell of colonial mentality. This is what Imagine Philippines, Imagine More is about: a human centered, brain based cultural healing and transformative leadership program designed to empower the Filipino diaspora to examine and transform long term psychological, social, and leadership impacts of colonial mentality. Next slide, please. So Imagine Philippines, Imagine More consists of an integrative, what I'm calling soul brain framework of two paths. The first path is the five soul steps, which describe the cultural identity and healing process of awareness, acceptance, awakening, arising, and actualizing, and integrated with the five steps of brain operating system, which we have seen some of our presenters earlier, and which provides the mind body energy principles and practices to the five soul steps. So brain sensitizing stimulates awareness of the lingering effects of colonial mentality. Brain versatilizing enables acceptance and release of inherited narratives with compassion. Brain refreshing, awakening authenticity by letting go of negative emotions and experiences, which then, with brain integrating, enables arising with leadership presence by aligning thoughts, emotions, and actions, leading to brain mastery for self actualization and greater contribution to communities and the earth. I do believe this soul brain framework leads to deep healing and profound transformation from the spell. Next slide, please. So, to begin applying the framework, we conducted a pilot program from July to December 2025. This included 3 storytelling circles with community leaders and members of the National Association of Nurses in Los Angeles. And we also provided training using the Soul Brain framework, 3 virtual and 3 in person, with 8 pioneers. Next slide, please. I use the term pioneers intentionally because these 8 participants pioneered new territory, going back to our ancestral roots and connecting and embodying ancestral archetypes as a way to lead and show up in the world. And the pioneers reported growth in self awareness, leading to greater self confidence, the release of inferiority narratives, and strength in cultural pride and greater sense of belonging. These outcomes matter because they show that cultural healing and transformation is not merely intellectual or emotional, it is holistic. From an academic and practical perspective, this suggests that integrative approaches that include physical movements, reflective, and brain based practices may be especially valuable in addressing inherited cultural trauma and moving toward healthy coexistence. Next, please. Next slide. The pioneers' testimonies say this more powerfully than I can. One pioneer, a CEO of her company, shared, "I discovered the inherent strength of spirit I naturally have and no longer have to suppress it and make myself small." Another pioneer, an executive director of her nonprofit organization, reflected how the mind body practices helped her slow down, engage all her senses, go deeper, and experience a greater sense of inner balance. For one other pioneer, a Chamber of Commerce president, what was most impactful was finally having language and deeper context for things she had felt but could not name, especially around Filipino identity, voice, and effects of colonial narratives. To me, these testimonies are powerful, for they affirm that this work is already making a difference. Because once we can name what shaped us, the spell weakens and loses its power, and we can move and live beyond the spell. I want to close with this reflection. Each of us is born with inherent greatness, and each of us, in one form or another, lives under some kind of spell, a narrative that distorts the sense of self. For Filipinos, the colonial spell distorted our greatness into inferiority. So the work before us is to recognize the spell, to study it, and to break free from it. To this end, our future is not about rejecting our past. It is about remembering our true identity, transforming inherited beliefs, and with resiliency, reclaim and embody our inherent greatness for the present and future generations. I invite you to take one step from the soul brain framework to remember and manifest your own greatness. Together, we can live with greater health, peace, and coexistence for humanity and for the earth. This is the invitation of brain education and of Imagine Philippines, Imagine More. Thank you all very much. Maraming salamat. Thank you.